No one can forget the sonic boom of the South. With its iconic dance team, drills, and drumline, the JSU Marching Band has captured the attention of football fans across the country. The band has also made a name for itself in Hollywood, gaining fans through popular movies and video games. In 2003, the sonic boom of the South took its rightful place in the NCAA Hall of Champions. As we turn to the next few decades of the sonic boom of the South, let's go back and learn the history of the famous band from Tigerland, the Sonic Boom of the South, narrated by current director of bands, Mr. Dowell Taylor.
The Jackson State University Marching Band, affectionately referred to as the Sonic Boom of the South, has a long and rich history. I will attempt to provide a truncated version of some of that history, and starting with some of its famed directors. The program was actually started in the 20s, 1920, when F.D. Hall, you might recognize that name because it is the name of our music center, F.D. Hall Music Building. When F.D. Hall came to town, he was a one-man show. F.D. Hall did band, choir, orchestra, strings, you name it. And he actually started the band program, not necessarily as we know it today, but it was the humble beginnings. He produced Jackson State's first band director by the name of Mr. Kermit Holly. Mr. Kermit Holly was his student, and he was very efficient and proficient in a lot of categories of music. He was a violinist, and he had an excellent baritone voice. As a matter of fact, he had a quartet that traveled around and raised funds for Jackson State University Department of Music. Kermit served most of his time at Lanier High School. And from that service at Lanier High School, he would invariably come to Jackson State on a part-time basis and started a band at Jackson State University, which consisted of students from Lanier High School and Jackson College at that time. And of course, that was in the 40s and 30s. He was a graduate of Vandercook and Clark College in Atlanta. Outstanding musician, produced some outstanding sons in music. Kermit Jr., Bernard Holly, and Hera Halton. They were all outstanding band directors. I believe Kermit spent probably 40 years at Lanier High School. And from that particular experience, the college, the Jackson State College Band as we know it today, was actually initiated in 1948. And that was when Mr. W. Davis, William Davis, was hired to assume the position of band director. He came to us from Alabama, although he was born, I believe, in Ironton, Ohio. He came to us from Alabama. He had experience with the United States Army Band, very renowned trumpeter, outstanding trumpet player, and he also was a member of the Cab Calloway Orchestra, or jazz band. He even arranged for that outstanding group. He brought that experience to Jackson State University, and as he began to arrange music for the band, the marching band really got its signature sound from the arrangements of William W. Davis. Outstanding gentleman. And he influenced so many band directors who came through Jackson State, including Hera Halton, Dowell Taylor, Liddell. All of us came under the tutelage of William W. Davis, even including the voice of the sonic boom, Dr. Jimmy James Jr., even the Vice President for Academic Affairs, Esther Smith, even the department chair who chaired Jackson State's Department of Music for many years, Dr. Dolly M.E. Robinson. All of them worked under Prof. Davis. Prof was the first one who carried our symphonic band to the World's Fair in New York. That was the first inkling of our potential for national exposure. There's much more we can talk about in those veins, but let me move on to one of Prof's students, and that student was Hera Halton. Hera Halton was the next director in line who actually served as an assistant director to William Davis in the late 60s. I think he served 3 years. He came to Jackson. He was born in Canton, Mississippi, and he came to Jackson after serving as band director in Alabama, a high school band director in the state of Alabama. And he came and served as an assistant, I believe, from 66 to 69. And he left and went to Prairie View. Yes, one of Jackson State's band directors was assistant band director at Prairie View. He was assistant to the marching band and also over the symphonic band at Prairie View. He stayed there 1 year, and then he came back to Jackson State as the marching band director in 1970. And in 1970, he began to make some changes to the marching band. William W. Davis stepped down, but he continued to direct the symphonic band, and he served as chief arranger for the marching band under Hera Halton, his student. Hera Halton created the Tiger Run-On as we know it today, a fast shuffle with an adagio step and a crowd favorite. He created the floating JSU, and he was responsible for the band getting more national exposure, as it was the first time the sonic boom was featured on national television, playing for some of the NFL games. They played for the Cincinnati Bengals, the Detroit Lions, and of course the New Orleans Saints. Hera Halton did a lot for the program. He initiated the William Moffett style of marching, the high knee lift, swing and sway, the swirls, the complex drill designs. Most of what you see today is a creation and a product of Hera Halton Sr. We owe a debt of gratitude to his contributions to the band program. Then we moved to another person who was Hera Halton's student. Recognize that lineage. It's still there. F.D. Hall, Holly, Davis, Halton, and now Halton's student, none other than Dowell Taylor. Dowell Taylor Pretty good old fella. He came to Jackson State as a freshman in 1972. I'm speaking of myself. By the way, I am Dowell Taylor. I came here in 1972 as a freshman and worked my way up through the ranks. I did a lot of arranging. I arranged over 100 selections as an undergraduate student. And after graduating, I served here as a graduate assistant. I earned the Best All-Around Bandsman Award, 1975. And after graduating, I took a job in Frankfort, Kentucky, where I served as Director of Bands for Kentucky State University. There I served for about 8 years, and in my last year there I also served as department chair. As soon as I accepted the job for department chair, I served there during the summer. I got the call from my alma mater, Jackson State University, a call I could not refuse. So I came home in 1984 and had a wonderful time building upon the success that Hera Halton had already developed prior to my coming. I was his student. During that period, the band was featured in a lot of magazines, Christian Science Monitor, the Jet magazine, People magazine, and we were also invited to perform in Hollywood, California. The band's really first time getting national exposure at Motown's 30th anniversary. And that particular story is really dear to me. There were a few bands really vying to get that coveted appointment. Southern, Grambling, Florida A&M, and I remember vividly that Southern University really felt that they had been chosen to do that particular performance. They even printed it in the official magazine for Kappa Kappa Psi, Podium. I always keep a copy of that. And when we were chosen, I didn't tell anybody. Nobody knew. And on the night of the game where Jackson State played Southern, one of our best performances in 1990, my friend Isaac Gregg, I went and during our show, I went and patted him on the shoulder, and I told him there's going to be a big announcement coming up now. Don't make sure you keep your cool, and you'll get over it by Wednesday. And by that time, Dr. James announced, tonight the band is on its way to Hollywood, California. But tonight we're in Louisiana, in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and as a tribute to Jaguar fans, we're going to play Do What You Wanna by Rebirth Brass Band. And the rest is history. In 1992, I retired from the band program and pursued some different avenues. I established a music technology program at Jackson State University, an undergraduate curriculum that eventually received accreditation from our accrediting agency, NASM, the National Association of Schools of Music. That program was going on quite well from that time, the early 90s, all the way up until I got the call to return to Jackson State University as band director. Now here I am chairing the committee, but I ended up being the actual band director for that year. I agreed to do it on an interim basis, but then it became permanent the same year. During the second stint of my career, We had a great time being covered in ESPN, the magazine. We had a coverage with Headline News, I believe, HLN, and they covered the drum majors on what it takes to become a drum major at Jackson State University. And there were a lot of other things that don't come to mind right now, but we had a wonderful time. I met a new generation of students that I fell in love with, and our career ended in 2015. A dear friend of mine followed me to Jackson State University. As a matter of fact, he followed me when I left Kentucky State University, Dr. Liddell. We go way back, actually. We go back to 1970 when he was a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed young whippersnapper just out of college, and I was 10th grade, and he came in and had his first job, and I think I was one of the first students he whipped with a paddle, because I had gotten into a fight with someone, with a tuba player, and he came in and hit me so hard that dust came out of the back of my pants. And from that point forward, we were best friends, and our trail just sort of kept crisscrossing each other's trail as we followed our professional careers. But he graduated from Jackson State University, outstanding clarinetist and outstanding administrator, had a lot of different positions, served as assistant to presidents, assistant to deans at Murray State University, North Carolina A&T State University, and then he came to Jackson State University and assumed the position of director of bands. He picked right up where I left off, didn't miss a beat. The band kept maintained its lofty position above bands in the nation. As a matter of fact, he took the band to Hollywood, California again to participate in the NAACP Image Awards, the 34th Image Awards ceremony. And in that particular presentation, Cedric the Entertainer accompanied the band with the J-Sets, and it was a very good feeling for me, because it represented that the band continued to be at the top, in the top echelon of all bands in the nation. Dr. Liddell is a fierce competitor, and he gave the band that edge and kept the sound. He was accompanied, he had great assistants, a couple of the same one of mine, Mr. Edward Duplessis, Mr. Paul Adams. All of those guys, along with others of course, helped Dr. Liddell to produce that program. Under Dr. Liddell, the band was featured in a video game. The band was enshrined in the NCAA Hall of Fame. The band was featured at Honda Battle of Bands. He did a lot for the program, and he should be commended for those efforts. After Dr. Liddell, there was a little lull between the next permanent director, and that's when we had a series of interim directors. As a matter of fact, let me go back. In 1992, Mr. Edward Duplessis served as interim marching band director in 1992, the year that I stepped down, but also the year prior to that I had piloted a program called Director of Band Structure that we are now experiencing today. Mr. Duplessis served in that position for 1 year. When Dr. Liddell left, that was a person by the name of Dr. Ronaldo Murray. and he is now director of bands at Alcorn State University. He attended Jackson State on the graduate level, although he is a graduate of Alcorn State University, and he did an outstanding job as well. When I came back in 2012, left in 2015, one of my students took over the marching band. The lineage continues. But prior to that, I had established the director of band structure, whereby the director of bands could now serve in an administrative capacity to handle all the paperwork, plan the trips, order buses, order supplies. This was designed to relieve the marching band director of all of the mundane duties associated with being a director of bands and marching band director combined. My efforts to separate the positions came to fruition finally. I tried it in '92. I don't think Jackson State was ready for it at that time. But then in 2015, we finally got it to that point. So with Mr. Roderick Liddell accepting the position as marching band director, that left the position of director of bands open. And that was assumed by Dr. O'Neil Sanford. O'Neil Sanford brings a wealth of experience to the staff. He actually graduated from Southern University in the 60s, and he held down some high school jobs in Louisiana, Sevier, Louisiana, I'm not sure the pronunciation, and Fairday, I believe, and then he moved on to serve as an arranger and assistant band director at Mississippi Valley. And from there, he served under the legendary Mr. Boone at Mississippi Valley. From there, he left and went to Virginia State University, served admirably there, did some outstanding things for the program, and he was so successful that he was tapped to take over the job at the University of Minnesota. And he did a lot of outstanding arranging there. He developed some marches, some celebration fanfares for the bicentennial at Minnesota, the University of Minnesota. And then he moved to the University of Pittsburgh, big time responsibilities, and he handled them admirably. And so we are glad to have him on our staff at Jackson State, because after leaving those programs, he really put his stamp of experience on the program at Norfolk University in Norfolk, Virginia. Is that right? Yes. In Norfolk, Virginia, he did an outstanding job at the program there until his retirement, and then he came to Jackson State. And now he's serving as a rock of stability for the program as we allow the young directors to be groomed for the next generation of the sonic boom of the South. I'd like to thank Dr. Sanford for his work during my 2-year absence from the program after I retired in 2015, June. Done a wonderful job. Thank you, Mr. Sanford. And now we begin a new era, a new chapter in sonic boom history. And ironically, that new chapter starts again with me. I am back for my 3rd stint with the program. Of course, this time it's a bit different. I'm coming in as the traditional, true director of bands structure. This is the structure where I will not necessarily be dealing with field work, the actual show design. That will be done this time around by the person that I hired in 2012, Mr. Roderick Liddell. He has been designated to be the director of the marching band. He will be assisted by Mr. Hera Halton, as we mentioned before, who's going to be coordinating our concert bands, the symphonic band, the concert band 1, 2, etc. And I'm excited to announce that we have a new addition to the family, and that is Mr. Kelvin Johnson. He comes to us as an arranger, and adroit arranger. He has done an excellent job writing for the band even before he became a member of the staff. So we are proud to welcome him. The new structure consists of those persons I just mentioned, plus the director of the Prancing JSAS, Miss Chloe Crowley, who came to us in 2013, and of course our administrative assistant, Miss Courtney Lett. With this team, I have already dubbed them to be Dream Team 2. The Dream Team 1 was myself, Mr. Paul Adams, Mr. Edward Duplessis, and of course, Mr. Byron Gregory. As we move on into this third phase, I'm very excited about the future. For now, we have the template set for the marching band for the next 30 years. I think, looking back, Mr. Hera Halton joined the program when he was in his 30s as director. I took over the program in 1984, and I was exactly 30. And so now we have a team of directors just a little older than we were, who are about to, the team is about to take over the program and carry it to the next phase. And Mr. Liddell likes to use the term the next level, and I think they are well on their way to doing that. We have accomplished quite a bit since I've returned in 17. Of course, I received a lot of honors, and I'm proud of those honors. And one of them was I was inducted into the National Black College Alumni Hall of Fame. And the band HBCU Consortium honored me. The Honda Battle of Bands honored me. And I was honored by the City Council of Jackson, the Senate of Jackson, and the House of Representatives. And I'm proud of those achievements. Now, what I do want to make sure that I don't forget to do is mention a bit about our assistant directors. Now, some of those directors actually served dual capacities, but I want you to know who they are. I want it to be on this recording since we're talking about history. There is no single head director who could have achieved what this program has achieved without the assistance of the assistant directors. And I would like to just make sure I don't miss any. I'm going to read some names out that may be familiar to some of you and might bring back some very pleasant memories. Dr. Dolly Emmy Robinson, Dr. Esther Smith, Dr. Jimmy James Jr., the voice of the sonic boom, Mr. Edward Duplessis, who also served as marching band director, Mr. Joe Goree, Mr. James Holden, Mr. Paul Adams, Mr. Byron Gregory, Dr. Russell Thomas Jr., Mr. William Bethea, Dr. Michael Magruder, Mrs. Crystal Swepson Britton, Mr. Joe Ringgold, Dr. David Ware, Dr. Renardo Murray, who also served as interim director of bands, Mr. Ralph Chapman, Mr. Paxton Gertman, Dr. Paxton Gertman, Dr. Owen Rockwell, Mr. Hera Halton, Mr. Adrian Mitchell, Mr. Rodney Chisholm, Mr. Roderick Liddell, Mr. O'Neill Sanford, who also served as director of bands, as we have mentioned, Mr. Shan Leggett. All of those persons, well, don't let me forget Mr. Kevin Johnson. All of those persons have really contributed to the legacy of our program. Now, allow me to change channels just for a bit to talk about the Prancing J Sets. Don't want to forget them in this documentary because we operate as one family. There's no Prancing J Sets, Sonic Boom. We're all the Sonic Boom family, and the Prancing J Sets are a part of that group. The Prancing J Sets actually started with Mrs. Shirley Middleton Blakely. She served as a majorette under Professor William W. Davis. They marched with boots and tassels. And when she became coordinator, I believe it was in 1870, she became coordinator, and she went and asked Dr. John A. Peoples if he would allow, well, first she asked Mr. Hera Halton, but he gave her permission to ask Dr. John A. Peoples if he would allow the majorettes to put their batons down and just dance. And he said yes, and that's when the J-Sets were born. She served from 1970 to 1975. In 1975, that was Mrs. Nera Otis. Mrs. Nera Otis, she actually put into place a lot of the things that the J-Sets are doing today. The salt and pepper stuff, I don't know how to do it, but it looks something like that. The salt and pepper, the tiptoe, that stuff they do. She did most of those things, and she served the program admirably under Mr. Halton, under Mr. Taylor, and she also served under Dr. Lewis Liddell. I think she served from 1975 until 1997. And after that, Miss Kathy Worthy came in, and she kept up to tradition, even refined the dances, took them to another level in terms of dance style. The techniques were a bit more difficult, and she was responsible for the J-Sets really as we know them today. And after Ms. Worthy, our present director, Ms. Chloe Crowley, joined us in 2013. And obviously, we are dealing with a lineage again, the same as you will find in our directorship. All of the directors either marched under one or they were in the program at some point. And the same thing with the J-Sets. Miss Chloe Crowley, Ashley Crowley, performed dance under Miss Kathy Worthy. That's a brief history of our J-Sets, and they have done an outstanding job. They were just recently in a video with Level Up, Ciara. She was recently in a video there, and they've been trying to get them in a lot of different national events. There are some things on the table right now, and we're very proud of that group. I want to give a shout out to Mr. Hollis Pippin, who also played an integral part in the formulation of that group, and of course Miss Gloria Tatum, who founded the alumni Prancing J-Sets. So overall, you have been listening to a verbal history of the Sonic Boom. I hope you enjoyed some of the pictures that were inserted to allow you to be intimately connected with this great organization that we have a lot of love for. We appreciate all of the past presidents who have supported the program. We certainly appreciate our current president, Dr. William Bynum, who is an avid supporter of the Sonic Boom of the South. Now it's time to go back to the field and get ready for 2019. Here we come.